Good morning and welcome to Friday morning's daily devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. Today we are on Genesis 26. And I have to admit, this is a pretty fun chapter if you ask me. There's a lot going on here. So, if I just get stuck on the first few verses, I apologize now because I just think it's really interesting what we can find here. So, in the first few verses, we discover that there is a famine in the land. And it makes a special note to say, besides the former famine that Abraham experienced. And what I just think right now, in the time of our pandemic that we are experiencing, and people making it out like it's some new thing or something that's like never happened before, we find that really history just repeats itself. And that if you look back, there was a time where people were starving before. There was another time in which the flu went through, the polio, measles, the swine flu, the plagues. I mean, goodness, this is so there's a sense of repetition of history. And right here in the first line of 26, the repetition of history. And we're going to see repetition some more in here, more than we've normally seen. So then we find that that the Lord actually does speak to Isaac, and he renews his covenant with Isaac that the Lord had with Abraham previously. And so I think that's important to realize, because it means that Isaac also had a personal relationship with God. It wasn't just Abraham and then passing it down, but Isaac also was going to be renewed this covenant. Now, what I think is interesting when you put the two of these together, when we think about all that's happening in the pandemic with us right now, for those who continue to stay faithful to God during this time, who recognize the promises that have been given and can keep consistent with it, it's going to work out. We're going to be able to experience God's goodness on the other side of this, because the promise is being extended. And so I think this gives us a lot of hope right here. If we have a personal relationship with Jesus, if we have a personal relationship that leads us closer to God and helps us to live and experience the Holy Spirit, the promises are coming to us. This is the promise right here, and it's working for us today. And I mean, I could practically end there, but we have a lot more verses to go. So we find out that Isaac settles down in this place called Gerar, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but anyways, and so Isaac, he follows in his father's footsteps. He passes off Rebecca as his sister because she's so beautiful. He's afraid of what's going to happen to him. And so he once again, he makes the same mistake as his father. Now, he's in the land of Abimelech. So here's the crazy thing. So Abimelech's looking at it, says one day, and he checks Isaac kind of having a good time with Rebecca. And so he's like, oh no, you are not going to fool me again. And actually, Abimelech, it's like he's the one who learns the lesson. Isaac makes the same mistake as his father, but Abimelech's like, oh, no. You're not doing this to us again. She's your wife. Just admit it and don't bring guilt upon us because of your fear. Isn't that interesting? Don't bring guilt upon us for your fear. I'll just let that one sit. I could probably talk about that a little bit, but other people's fear brings sin into other people's lives. And we see that here. Except this time, Abimelech's like, wait, no, we're not going down that road. So be aware that everything you do does affect other people. Other people. Even if you're trying to do it because you're trying to protect yourself, you could be actually hurting somebody else. So anyways, interesting to think about. So we find that Isaac goes ahead and he becomes quite wealthy in this area and everything. And so Abimelech and they're like, you know, you've gotten to be too big for us. Would you please leave? Like, just go somewhere else. So we find that Isaac departs and he goes into another area. And we have this interesting thing that happens where he'll dig a well and then the people will fight over it. So he moves on and he digs another well. And this is important for his herds and all that kind of stuff. And then they fight over it. And then he moves again, and the third time digs a well and nobody fights with him. And for him, that is the sign that this is the place where he's supposed to be. Now, what I think is interesting about this is we've been told that Isaac is quite mighty. He's quite wealthy. He could probably maintain one of these wells and, you know, fight off the people. But he's really trying to become a part of this community. And so it means he can't go head to head with them. He just has to say, okay, that's what it is, and keep moving until he does find that spot. And this is a sign of trust from Isaac. He trusts that when it is the right time and place, he will be able to settle down. And so he does that. And I find it's great. He doesn't go to war with any of them. He doesn't kill anybody. He just says, okay, and moves on. So when he finds this third well and all is doing well, guess what? Abimelech again is like, you know, God sure is watching out over that guy. And so Abimelech then goes and says, Isaac, I'd like to make an oath with you. And of course, Isaac is like, what? You kicked me out. You didn't like me. And Abimelech's like, yeah, I know, but we realized that from the way you are leading your life, you might have messed up that time, but overall, we see that God's with you, that the Lord is with you, and we don't want to be on your bad side either. And we want to work with you, and we want to do this. And so we find that they make peace, and now, like, Isaac is kind of becoming a part of the community. It's a lot of work. And it goes to show, it shows us kind of the good and the bad that happens all at once. It's the drama of it. And then, right here, at the very end, and the very end of my devotion, there's just this little tiny 2-verse blurb about Esau. So remember, Esau is Isaac and Rebekah's oldest son. And it says, when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Berechath the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So family drama is evidently still going on. So if you're experiencing family drama this season, you are not alone. This is just the life. And we're going to see some brotherly rivalry on Monday. But for now, for today's devotion, I think it's really just realizing that we're experiencing some of the same things that happened in the Bible through the pandemic right now. And we can really see how God is still offering his promises to us. And our part is to stay faithful, to not live in fear, and to continue to bring peace to whatever community that we find ourselves. And I think that gives us a lot of hope, faith, and joy for today's devotion. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining me. Bye.